Hi, Alan Cox here. Oftentimes I'm asked, how do we limit Copilot's reach within the Microsoft Graph? You remember within Copilot, by default, it has access to the entire Microsoft Graph. Basically, whatever the user has access to, Copilot has access to. And that's something that I talk to our clients often about so that we understand some of the governance and compliance, some of the readiness stuff we might need to do. A while back, I recorded a video on the site access restriction. However, I'm going to take that a step further because I talked about some limitations there. And today we're going to talk about how using a label and a simple DLP policy, how we can block access to Copilot really pretty simply. So we're going to talk about that today. It's going to be our topic today. So let's get started. I'm in my OneDrive in File Explorer because I want to demo something here real quick. We'll do this a couple different ways, and then we will show you what I have in place. I'll walk through the configuration that I have in place, and there's going to be several ways you can do what I'm going to show you, but I'm just going to show you pretty easy way to essentially restrict the content from Copilot for specific files or certain file classifications or SITs or sensitive information types. So let's get right to it. So here I have this CBG anti-harassment equal employment opportunity policy, right? So we're just going to open this Word file here. It's just going to open Word on the desktop. We'll take a look at this real quick. I'm just going to kind of show you what we have in place. And notice right up here I have a label that's labeled Copilot block, right? And if we go over to sensitivity labels, we'll see that Copilot block is here's one of my deployed labels that I can apply. Now this is just through a regular label policy and sensitivity label. We'll show you how that's built, and then we'll give you some options there. But from here, I do have this label applied. Let's drop into Copilot over here. We'll do this a couple different ways. So first of all, I'm just going to simply ask it to summarize this file. Really pretty simple prompt there. But I want to get through the idea here that this should come back and essentially tell us, can't do it. You asked me to summarize the file. However, I was unable to access the content of this file due to your organization's security policy, so I can't provide a summary. Okay. All right, so there you go. So basically, Copilot did in fact block this file from being reached. So let's do it. Okay, fine. Let's do it a different way. Let's go into the Copilot chat experience here, and I'm just going to just throw in summarize, and I'm just going to do it / here. We'll bring here this the same file. We're going to bring this into play here, and I'm going to ask it to do it here. Okay, and we'll see if this. All right, essentially the same thing. Unable to access the content of this file due to your organization's security policies. Cool. So we have successfully blocked access to this file. All right. So let's do this. Let's go. Let me go into that file again. I'm going to go into this file. I'm going to take the label off, and we're going to basically do the same thing. So at this point, I'm going to go in. I'm going to say this is going to be a public file now. I'm basically taking the security off of it. So we've taken switched the label out. And now I'm just going to do this one prompt over here. Pretty much what we did before. And let's just ask it to summarize this file, right? So now we have a label, but it's a public label that's Copilot should be able to use. So there you go. So now we have a summary. It's given me full detailed summary of this file. So definitely worked there. So we've proved it on and off. Let me drop this back here. We're going to go back to Copilot, and we already know that it is not going to summarize this file. No file access. Copilot doesn't have permission to access this file, right? Cool. How do we do this? How do we build this? Well, let's go into Microsoft Purview. So I'm in Purview here. purview.microsoft.com. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a label. Now this label doesn't have to have much. If I go into this label here, I will show you how we can do this. So I can go in, let me go into sensitivity labels. And we've got a couple Copilot blocks here. And normally you can't have two names with the same name, but there's a little trick here. We added an extra space. So what we did here is I'm going to go in and I'm literally going to delete this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this label. We'll see if we can do this. The one that's actually applied should be this label right here, which is number 10 in priority, which is almost the highest priority, and will be soon enough. All right, so this should delete that label, and I'll just show you just what I did here. If I need to use, if I need to recreate this, the thing is when you do this, it can take a little while. So which is why we're going to use this. This is the label that's actually applied. But if I go ahead and create a label here, and I'm going to say Copilot, another space, label, well, no, block. Or I don't have to do that. I could just do Copilot block label. Yeah, spell. Let's do that. And then we'll do, basically, this is a message that the user will get that essentially is going to really say, this file is unable to be accessed by Copilot. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that, and then I can give it a color here. We'll keep it black. I'm going to go next here. Now, I don't really need this for emails and meetings. Okay, I don't need it for those. We can do groups and sites, or just files and data. Either way, I'm just going to next. There's not much to it. I'm going to who I want to see this label, who I want to access this label. I'm just going to assign some permissions here. It's going to be everybody, and there's things we can edit about this and all of that, and some we can get. If I wanted this to only apply to everybody except for somebody, then I could do all that. So we're just making it pretty simple to create this label. I could do an auto labeling policy, which is where I could apply this label and the subsequent DLP policy against specific SITs. So if I wanted this more automated and not have to apply the label manually, I could do an auto label, but I'm not going to do that. For this one here, I'm not even going to define any of these protections here. I'm just going to create this label. Okay, so I've created the label. That's all I need to do there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to take that label, then I'm going to take the existing label that I already have. Waiting for this to finish. Now I can publish this label. I'm not going to create a policy here. Because I would on this one, which is the one that is deployed. And if we look at the configuration here, we will see that this is not auto-labeled, but it does not tell me. Okay, it doesn't tell me the policy, but if I go in and I look at label publishing policies and click this, we'll see that label is included in my policy to publish, not an auto label, so it is manual, which means I'd have to apply it to certain documents. We can automate that with an auto labeling policy if I want to publish it based on particular SITs. We can do that. But the magic of all of this happens now once the label is created. The next thing we want to do is we want to go to data loss prevention, and we'll go to policies here. We'll just look at the policy I have. When you're done building the policy, it takes a little bit for the sync to complete, but it actually deploys it pretty quick these days. But the sync does take a little bit, so we won't do it. We'll just look at how this is built. I'm going to go in and edit this DLP policy, Copilot block, designed to block access to Copilot. We're going to go next here. I'm not doing admin units on this. And then I'm unchecking everything except for this right here. This is Copilot. Okay, Microsoft 365 Copilot, targeting that. Now when we go next here, it's because of that, it's going to give me options here. So I'm going to edit this. We're going to look at this rule, Copilot block rule. Okay, Copilot block. Okay, that's a sensitivity label, right? So I'm adding a sensitivity label, Copilot block. And then down here is the actions. Let me delete this because the only action I have is to restrict Copilot from processing the content. So I'm going to click here and allow Copilot to block from accessing or processing that content. Content that matches your conditions won't be used by Copilot to generate responses to this action supported for specific content that's processed across various Copilot experiences, etc. So essentially, this DLP policy is pulling in everything that's applied, that label is applied to, and saying wherever that label shows up, Copilot is off limits. That's essentially what we're talking about. Then we can do all kinds of alerting and, let admins know when there's a match and all of this stuff, right? We can do all that. So I'm going to save that. That's it. There's nothing really there because the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn the policy on. I would recommend running it in simulation mode, and I'd always recommend labels and classification, labels and DLP, start in simulation and start small. Okay, start with a very small pilot group, just as a word of warning there. But this policy is on. I'm going to click next here. We're done. I can finish. It is over. And that is how we can get Copilot to be essentially off limits to certain files. But like I said, if I wanted to deploy, let me go back to real quick and we'll wrap this up. If I were to go and say I want to do an auto labeling policy, let's go and just take a look here and just give an example. I would do custom here, because now I can say custom policy. Now I can say choose the label that we're going to apply. Let's say we're going to do, it doesn't matter, let's just say we're going to do that one here. Add next. I can go in, we're going to skip admin units, because now I can say, where do we want this? SharePoint and OneDrive. Okay, I can go next here. Now I can do common set of rules, because now I can be very granular and say the new rule is, okay, the new rule is when content contains, or content is shared, content is shared, or content contains sensitive information type, right? So if it has this type of information, it's going to apply the rule, it's going to apply the DLP policy, which has the label attached, it's automatically deployed, and so you can automate that process rather than having to go into the file and having someone or the user designate this label as a Copilot block. So anyway, that's how we can block it. That's how we can control access. Really, it takes me just a few minutes to do this, to get it kind of out there and configured. It takes a little while for some of that dust to settle for it to get applied to the labels, or to the documents. But that's how we can use DLP and sensitivity labels to control access and narrow the scope of Copilot. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and I thank you for watching.